Hey, welcome back to the channel, you guys. Today with Drawing with Michael. Today I'm going to do and show a time-lapse representation of my experience and kind of do some talking over the process of me drawing in Fresco. Adobe Fresco. For those of you who aren't aware, Adobe released a piece of software on the iPad Pro within the past 4 weeks. That is supposed to be what I deemed a direct competition with Procreate. I'm sure you've seen people go into Fresco, on YouTube. I've actually done a first, after Fresco was released, within the first couple days, I did a video of me opening the program and drawing in it. And from the get-go, there was some user interface issues, but I kept an open mind and I made sure that I didn't have a bias against it because I've been using Procreate since the beginning, and I love Procreate because of the way that they've invested in the infrastructure, not to mention the play model is such that you buy it once and you get unlimited, or at least right now, unlimited updates, and it's just a fantastic program. Adobe Fresco, however, is a pay-to-play, which means the first 6 months are free for non-subscribers to Adobe Creative Cloud. And then after that, there's a price tier that is, frankly, in the subscription world, it is quite expensive. If you are a current Creative Cloud subscriber, then, of course, you will be able to download the program and utilize it in your workflow. However, after having the exposure to this particular program for the past 2.5, 3 weeks, I've realized that it is not ready. It needs to bake a little bit longer. Some of the brush features, not to mention some of the missing features, are something that I just can't overlook as far as a professional tool. And I realize that this is Adobe's MO as far as releasing products that aren't completely cured, and they will release incremental updates as they progress and get better and better. And Procreate, you guys listen, Procreate was the same way when we first got the program. It had a great interface and it was easy to use, but on the other hand, it was lacking some features that eventually we got. And now to compare this program with Procreate, it's a little silly to do that. But on the other hand, whenever you look at Adobe as a giant, it's hard to say that they shouldn't have released, at least on the baseline, some features inside the program. One of them being, of course, blur. Blur is not present in Adobe Fresco that I can see. And also modification of brushes. And then, of course, eraser, being able to utilize a brush as an eraser. It just has a regular eraser. Anyway, so I'm going to get into the drawing and kind of do an overview and a narration of exactly what I'm thinking as I use the program. So enjoy. Okay, so that was my finished piece. It does a time-lapse recording of your screen as you use the program, very similar to Procreate. I can't remember if you can adjust the frame rate or the resolution. At either rate, I think that it is missing a couple features whenever it comes to recording. So I'm doing my initial sketch utilizing the standard brush that they have inside, which is fantastic. Their standard brush in terms of sketching and tapering, I think, I don't even think Procreate has that all the way down whenever it comes to that particular brush. So, kudos to Adobe Fresco for being able to create something out of the box that works really well. That sketch brush is just wonderful, sketch pencil. The brushes that you get inside of Adobe Fresco are pretty robust. As I'm sketching, I'm enjoying the interface. It does have, or at least this particular iteration of this program and the OS, and I'll tell you about that here in a second. It did have some weird issues as far as palm rejection and as far as just overall stability of the program inside the OS. I updated yesterday I updated the OS yesterday because there was an update and it seemed to solve the issues. I'm not really sure if the Creative Cloud was trying to ping through the internet and it was messing things up, very similar to what happens on PCs. But that being said, I think overall, as I'm progressing through the sketch, I'm enjoying, things quite a bit. So then I kind of play, you see, and I'm playing around with different strokes and different brushes of what I want, different pen brushes, and I think I landed on one of the inkers. What's really cool about Adobe Fresco is you can import ABR brushes from Photoshop. So any of the Photoshop collections that you have, I've got thousands of brushes I can import into Adobe Fresco. I'm not really sure if that's going to adversely affect the performance, but that being said, I was able to import some brushes into Adobe Fresco. Also, if you're a Creative Cloud subscriber, I found this out recently. Kyle's collection of brushes are up on the Adobe website, and you can basically go and download huge swaths and collections of his brushes to kind of put into Fresco and Adobe Photoshop, for that matter. So as I'm finalizing my sketch, this isn't any particular character in general or anybody that I know in general, just an amalgamation of different characters that I meet throughout my life. And more or less, in terms of descriptives, this particular character is just more or less kind of a core character, meaning it doesn't look like anybody in particular, but it's got facets and qualities of things that I've seen, not only here in the mountains, but over, like in Orlando. Of course, whenever I start putting in color. So you see that I started messing around with one of the texture brushes. I believe it was the graphite brush. Then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go in and start watercolor. This is the basis for Adobe's Fresco's strength. The watercolor engine inside of Fresco is phenomenal. It is absolutely one of the best, if not the best, in my opinion, watercolor engine on the market. I use Rebel software made by Escape Motions, and I've used Rebel now for about 5 years, 4 or 5 years, and they're fantastic. I was a beta tester for Rebel 3, and I think it's a fantastic program, but compared to this, that watercolor engine in this program far outdoes Rebel, in my opinion. Of course, I've enjoyed Rebel, but on the other hand, Adobe Fresco has you beat Rebel. Sorry. However, where Fresco fails, I think, is the user interface. Everything's disconnected. Your layer transparency effects, they're not where they really should be. It's hard to delete stuff. It's hard to do things inside of the program because I'm so used to Procreate. Now, it does have some of the same quick keys, your double tap, your triple tap. But in terms of just robustness, having a blur effect, creating a clipping mask, stuff like that, I think that definitely Procreate has this program beat ad nauseum. In terms of just overall the way this program performs, I did have issues after I updated the program, and also I updated the OS. It kind of solved them. But I think overall, as you watch, I did have fun with this piece. It was good. And I got a lot of experience inside of the program. I didn't really get in. Once I got to this point, I kind of got to the point where I got kind of frustrated with the program, as you see. And then I started trying to export as a freaking JPEG to my photo library, and I couldn't. I had to export it to my phone through Airport or AirDrop, which was very frustrating. So this is going to be the end of the drawing process, the fast drawing process. So as you can see, it was a fun drawing overall. I always equate learning a new program to an exploration, right? It is going to be one of those deals if you decide to download this program and try it out. You have to do it with that mental note in your brain that it's going to be a different experience than Procreate, even though it's kind of marketed as being the direct competition for Procreate. It is not Photoshop. You can export as a PSD, which is actually pretty cool. The live brushes, once you start the live being the paint, which I didn't go into at all in this, I just did the watercolor and the dry brush set. you have the ability to dry a layer, which is really cool. It also supports vector, which is also pretty cool. I didn't get into that. So this is just a really short overview of my process. Now, you as an illustrator and artist will have a different process than me, which is completely fine. But this is kind of how I draw. I have my initial sketch, then I clean up my sketch, then I put color, your local color, and then I go in and I put texture, and then I put shading, and I utilize multiply, and I utilize overlay, and then I put my highlights in depending on the rendering quality. And that's my own. Now, you got to understand something. Me being a professional, I also have a style that caters to my clients. So if I were to go in and start really tight rendering this thing, maybe for a character or something for Disney or Universal Studios, then I would not use my style. I would utilize their style, which involves a lot of really tight rendering, airbrush, maybe texture, maybe some different overlay and multiply layer effects. And of course, this program has the ability to do some of those things, but I would not do it on the iPad just because of the fact that in terms of power, I work in a lot of layers, sometimes 200 and 300 layers. And I think I saw somebody, add a bunch of layers in this program. And then whenever they went to go export it, it crashed the program. But here's the deal. What I want you to take away from this, because I saw somebody else, and I watched another couple videos in reference to Adobe Fresco, and they said basically skip it. Don't download it. And I think that's short-sighted. I think that what you need to realize as an artist is this is another potential tool. And when you start looking at it like that, as it develops, as Adobe Fresco develops, then it will get better and better and better, just like Procreate, just like, well, unlike Photoshop, because it seems like every single time they update Photoshop, it goes in the toilet. Recently with Catalina and with Windows 10, Photoshop has just took a crapper, and you go to export and you go to save files and it crashes and corrupt files. I've had so many corrupt files when it comes to Photoshop recently. It's absolutely ridiculous. I haven't had that many corrupt files in Photoshop since 1997. I mean, that's kind of sad if you ask me, Anyway, I digress. And I just wanted you guys to take away this. Adobe Fresco is not the solution. I talk about this in my class and say, we're all, as artists and digital artists, we're always looking for solutions to solve our visual problems. We're looking for solutions and programs as, buttons, as I have bugs fly in my face. You want that easy button, and that's not what it is. There is no easy button. I always equate programs and computers and interfaces and UX and UI design. Those are all things that inhibit me from being creative. If I want to sit down and be creative, you know what I do? I grab a regular pencil or a marker and I just go to town. And even that stops me from being creative. We're all looking for that path to be instantaneous, to not have lag, to not have parallax, to not have some type of user interface thing that really inhibits us from being creative. Does Adobe Fresco cater to my creativity? Right now, no, unfortunately. I do like a lot of the brushes. I do like a lot of the things in it. But whenever it comes to just being able to seamlessly work, it stops me. I'll be working and I want to change the layer opacity. I can't just tap the layer and then have a submenu come up and adjust the opacity. I have to go and I have to move my hand up to the right-hand side. I have to click this thing that looks like an equalizer from the 80s. Then I have to click that, and then I have to adjust the layer, effect or opacity. And then I have to click on the screen. So that's like 5 steps. Whereas in Procreate, it's like you click the layer, boom, it brings up a submenu, and then I can go and I can adjust the opacity. And that's one of those things as a user interface designer, you need to realize that if you're not an artist, that's the big deal. If you're not an artist and you're a user interface designer, that's kind of an insult to those people, isn't it? I'm sorry. If you are a user interface designer, what you need to do is you need to sit down and you need to really use the program in its pure form, meaning you're not analyzing it for how do I put it, for user interface design flaws. Not that. You're using it as a sketch artist, which is pretty much what Adobe Fresco is used for. And you sit down and you just paint. and you see how it works and the workflow and how things go and how the submenus work and just how that whole process works. Because what inadvertently happens is these big companies, they compartmentalize, and you have the coders, and then you have the designers, and then you have the artisans that test it, and all these people, you know, are paid by Adobe. And I don't know if they hire people or they do beta testing, which I'm pretty sure they do, and they did, and they took a lot of stuff out. But I think that, you know, on the forefront, you beta test this thing and you send it out to all the people. They have suggestions. But the reality is this, guys, they're going to take all those suggestions and they will probably implement them. But right now, just to get it out into the marketplace, to get the ball rolling and to get things going, they had to get it out. And right now, it just needs some more baking. I'm not going to trade in my Procreate and my Procreate brush collection and everything else for Adobe Fresco. And I did hear that recently Procreate will be releasing a version 5, which should have an updated rendering engine and some really cool brushes. I've been watching some of the videos on YouTube in reference to that. So that being said, this video was primarily to show that even though Adobe Fresco is a powerful piece of software, I think as a professional, it just needs some more baking. And once it does get fully baked and some of the things and flaws get fixed, I think that, you know, it'll be a great piece of software and a great tool to add to the, you know, the collection and broadening collection of programs on the iPad Pro. Here's the deal. There aren't a lot of options right now in terms of, you know, having a lot of creative, powerful, professional tools on the iPad Pro. You have Procreate, which, in my opinion, does do professional work if you push it, and I'm sure Adobe Fresco will too. And then you have Clip Studio Paint, and then you have things like, Art Studio. There's some of the other, you know, Sketchable, some of the other programs that are really just Sketchbook Pro, which is terrible on the iPad Pro. But I think once we get a fully baked program, that it will be absolutely fantastic. And again, these are just tools, guys. That's all they are. You know, the tools get improved, just like, you know, cars get improved every single year, just like shoes have been improved every single year, just like your iPhone gets incremental updates every year. We've been programmed to accept this business model. And if you don't like the program, then don't freaking use it and don't buy it. You know, I just happen to have a Creative Cloud subscription that I downloaded it. So, and it is a tool. So enjoy. If you did download it, enjoy. And hopefully this video helped some people out decide on whether or not it's going to be a good option for them. It's kind of a fun program. So just enjoy it in terms of fun. Don't get rid of Procreate just yet. Anyway, that's all for today. I will be doing another video and uploading for you guys for Inktober. I think today is the 30th. I'll try and do today and tomorrow and get that wrapped up for you guys. So that's it for today. And hopefully you like and subscribe and share and enjoy the video. And we'll see you next time, guys. Bye.